Hey guys, Liz here from the Nail Hub, and as promised, I am doing a follow-up to my 30,000 foot view of the Light Elegance brand. Today I'm going to be going over their prep agents, which I like to refer to prep agents as a general category of bonders, primers, pH balancers, all of those different products that we all know we use for adhesion before we apply other products. I wanted to kind of do a little bit of a deep dive on each of those products within the Light Elegance product line. All right, so I'm going to kind of break these up into categories. There are some overlap with these products, which kind of makes it a little bit confusing, but I'm hoping that if I break this down for you, you'll be able to get a better idea of how these all work and what you would use them for. And I also will be doing some step-by-step application techniques. I have done several of them on my channel with Light Elegance products, but once I explain the products, then we'll go through actual demonstrations of when you would use each one and how you use them on an actual nail, okay? So I'm gonna start over here. Vit Prime, much like a lot of the traditional primers, primer just means first, so it's usually the first step in an acrylic line or in a gel line. Vit Prime is what is more of an acid-based primer. So it uses methacrylic acid, which you've probably seen this if you've been an acrylic nail technician for a while, and that kind of stinky cheese primer that you've come across, that's methacrylic acid. It is something that is used for etching the natural nail plate. So it does kind of eat away at the very, very surface of the nail plate to create a textured surface, and it helps to create adhesion between the nail and the product on top of it. Vit Prime is acid-based, so it isn't good for everybody. I would say Vit Prime is best used for people that have very thick natural nails. Jim McConnell from Light Elegance has referenced them as like hoof nails. They're almost like nails that you could file on for days and nothing appears to work or stick, or you can't even tell you've been filing on that nail. So those kind of nails, if you know what kind of client I'm talking about, usually they have the most beautiful, thick nails that literally can take a beating and keep on ticking. Those nails are going to be a good match for Vit Prime. Now, prepping the natural nail with a file is the best place to start, and I'll be showing that in my actual application demonstrations. But I always think that product knowledge is really important before you even start applying, because you need to understand what the product is, what it's intended to do, how to use it, and then you can get creative with your whole application. So Vit Prime is an acid-based primer. It does include some vitamin E, which is intended to help, protect the nail health. But it is something that is, more of a traditional acid-based primer. It is one of those ones that's going to smell like stinky cheese. That's the way I always reference methacrylic acid. And you do want to be very careful with acid-based primers in general. So if you've ever seen acid-based primers like No Lift Nails, anything like that, Vit Prime, you want to keep it off the skin. And I also always recommend that as a nail technician, because mishaps happen, I always tell people, keep some Mylanta or something in your drawer. If you ever spill acid-based primer on your lap or on your clothes or anything like that, first you want to try and get those clothes off as quickly as possible, but you can also apply an antacid to the skin to prevent acid burn. It's a very rare occurrence, and it isn't something to be scared of, but it is something to be prepped for, because honestly, in salons, a lot of crap can happen, and I do know a lot of people who have had mishaps with acid-based primers. They have an amazing purpose, but you also just need to know what you're working with, okay? So that is Vit Prime. Great for those nails that really you need help etching the surface of the nail. You need help with adherence. And also, if you are using the Light Elegance acrylic line, Vit Prime is going to be great for that. I personally don't use acrylic powder and liquid, so I can't really speak to acrylic, but Light Elegance also does have a liquid and powder acrylic line, which is equally amazing. It's just not something I'm going to cover on my channel because I'm not an acrylic expert, okay? But Vit Prime is great for that. Then we have Airbond. Airbond is equally a unique product. Airbond is what I would consider more of a typical air drying protein bond. So if you're used to hearing the phrase protein bond, it is something that is going to be akin to that. It uses humidity in the ambient environment to create adhesion on the nail. So it creates a very sticky surface on the nail. It works with ambient humidity. So if you are in a very humid environment, you would use Air Bond on the nail. You can also use Air Bond if you just love Air Bond. It's an air drying bonding agent, just like it says on the bottle. So you don't need to cure it in a lamp. It just dries in the air. It creates an extra sticky layer on the nail surface so that product can better adhere to it. It is flammable, so keep that in mind. And it uses some different ingredients to basically create that effect. So I really like Air Bond. It is something that is going to be something very common that you've probably already come across. It can be used under any of the Light Elegance products to create better adhesion. It can also be used in conjunction with the other bonders. So you could etch the nail with Vit Prime and then use Air Bond on top to create that stickiness. This is more of an etching agent. It's not necessarily going to create a sticky surface. It's going to more etch the nail surface. This is going to create more of that sticky nail plate surface, like a double-sided tape. And it just happens to use humidity in the air to be able to do that, okay? So me being in Arizona, I don't necessarily think that Air Bond is going to be the best option for such a dry environment. This is something that would definitely work in really humid environments and you would see much more of that effect. But I still use this underneath my gel polish, like on the free edge, to, eliminate chipping if I have clients or friends or family that I'm doing gel polish on and I find that their nails chip because they need more adherence on the end of the nail. Air Bond is a great little thing to add to the tip of the nail, but I'll get into also my favorite in just a second. Okay, Power Bond. Power Bond is interesting because Power Bond kind of combines a bonder and a base gel in one, okay? So when we talk about prep agents, to me, base coats are different than prep agents. Prep agents are usually something that create like an extra sticky surface or they create a chemically compatible surface. That's usually what you find with pH bonders, which is it changes the surface pH of the nail to better align with the pH of the product that you're going to put on top of so you get better adhesion. So bonding is really to me about creating increased adhesion beyond a base coat. And Power Bond actually kind of takes that adhesion factor and adds it into a hard gel base coat. So the important part about Power Bond is it's a hard gel bonding base coat. So it's going to create adhesion on the nail. It's going to also act as if it were like a gel polish type of base coat, but it's a hard gel formula. And Power Bond, it has been recently reformulated, so it is more flexible than it used to be. So if you tried Power Bond and you're like, man, for me it didn't work, my nails are too flexible for it, it seems to be too rigid, they did actually increase the flexibility of Power Bond, which I actually found worked really well for me. In the past, I was not a good candidate for Power Bond because my nails are naturally flexible and it just never lasted on me. But the updated Power Bond works really, really well. And you can also build it up a little bit. So if you're just wanting to do natural length nails, you're wanting something that you could backfill that is a hard gel, but you don't want to have to get into the whole potted thing. I actually have been using Power Bond as not only the base coat, but actually as a really nice thin viscosity builder. You can add a little bit of that upper arch before you put the color on. And especially when you're using something like buttercream where you just are going to be putting a thin coat of color over the top, I love Power Bond for that. So I can backfill it. I can e-file on it. It's very durable because it's hard gel, and the updated formula I really like, and it's going to feature that bonding and that base coat all in one. But much like I just said, you can combine these things. I would just recommend that you don't get prep agent happy and start adding like 3 different things to your service before you really see if it works. Always try something by itself first with good nail prep. And then if you need to add something for specific clients, like let's say you've got that client where you file their nails and you feel like you're prepping really well with a 100 grit file and they're still having issues with adhesion, maybe try Vit Prime. It'll etch that nail surface just a little bit more, create that kind of chemical etch. Or if you're in a really humid environment and you feel like, hey, I just feel like the nails feel a little bit wet, they're just not adhering really well, this is going to be something that really helps you. So you can always combine things, toy around with that a little bit to get the perfect recipe for each client or for your particular environment that you work in. but less is more. I just recently published a video about why nails lift even when you're using primers and bonders, and usually the reason why that happens is because you're overusing them, so keep that in mind. All right, one of the most popular bonders in the Light Elegance product line is tack. Tack is a very unique product, so it kind of takes the job of air bond, which are those typical air drying bonders that create an extra sticky double-sided tape type of adhesion factor between the nail plate and the product you're going to put on top. So if you're trying to create an extra sticky nail surface, tack is exactly that. But the cool thing about tack is it also is a little bit like Power Bond, where it cures in a UV lamp. So these two, I should probably preface that. These two products, Air Bond and Vit Prime, just dry in the air. You don't need to put them in the lamp. They just use air to dry and set up. And these two products you would put in your lamp. So think about them kind of like gel base coats. This one obviously being more like a hard gel base coat. This one being more like a bonder, but it does have a feature where when you cure it in a UV lamp, it actually gets extra sticky, and it kind of cures to the nail plate surface as if it were a base gel. So you can use tack to create extra sticky UV cured adhesion on the nail plate. It is very unique. I have never come across this kind of product in any of the other product lines I've ever worked with. Most product lines feature something like this, or like this, or maybe a combination thereof. Most of the brands I've come across are using something like an air drying quote unquote protein bond. So tack kind of takes that to the next level. It works really well under any of the Light Elegance products, but I just love it for any time I'm working with hard gel. And because it's such a thin bonding agent, it kind of soaks into the nail plate, grabs it, makes it extra sticky. It's not like a hard gel base coat like Power Bond. It does work with all different kinds of nail types. So again, depending on what your personal preference is, what kind of nails you're working on, that's how you would kind of choose one of these different bonding agents within the Light Elegance product line, okay? So I hope this video helps you understand a little bit more about each one of these inside of the Light Elegance product line. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to comment below this video. I'm always happy to answer questions. And if I need to clarify anything more, I can always do another video to get even more granular on these products. But I hope this helps you understand things before we put it on the nail. And in general, with any type of prep agent, less is always more. I always recommend you follow the manufacturer guidelines first. So depending on what the instructions call for, use the products sparingly, use them as they're intended before you start reaching to use all 4 of these things or something like that. Really, at the end of the day, lifting issues usually come from a lack of proper prep. And usually they also come from the opposite, which is overuse of bonders and primers. So it's about finding that happy medium between making sure your prep is on point and also utilizing the power of some of these products to enhance the adhesion so you get optimal results with your surfaces. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.